Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abimudo and today I'm going to be showing you the process for creating my final series. This was made in the first art class I've taken at Harvard. The class was called One Thing Leads to Another, Intro to Oil Painting. So the medium of these paintings are oil, and their size, they are 37 by 58 inches, and I know this because they made us make our canvases for the class, or like stretch our own canvases and like literally build the frames and stuff, which was kind of rough to be honest, but yeah, it was a good learning experience. And all the paintings are mom inspired. That was the theme of my final series, and it was a Christmas present for her. So I couldn't bring the paintings to her because we live overseas now, but I'm gonna bring them back next semester. And so on Christmas I showed her this time-lapse process video. Yeah, and it was a surprise and it was really sweet. So if you want to see her reaction, just stay tuned until the end. Okay, so when I was trying to decide whether or not this video really needed a voiceover, I was on the fence about it, but I think there are a couple main points I wanted to hit just to encourage other artists out there, because this project was a huge struggle. There were a lot of all-nighters, and there were kind of a lot of moments where I had no idea what was going on. I'd never painted anything of this size or portraits with this level of like detail or skin texture involved. And so there are parts of the painting, as you can see here, where I just didn't know what I was doing. And I think I just want to encourage other artists out there, like especially if you're into painting portraits or things that are realistic, I encourage you to kind of look for the details that no one can see and try to incorporate them, and realize that there are going to be moments when you look at your painting and you're not going to like what you see because it's in just such a weird stage that no one's going to really understand except for you, because it's your process and it's your art. And so I encourage you to stick to those details, and eventually you're going to put in enough of them that it's going to start clicking for you and it's going to start making sense. And so this painting was a huge learning curve for me. And I was a good I want to say this painting took me about 20 hours, and it didn't actually make sense to me until hour 15. Things weren't clicking, the texture of the skin wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. And so you have to trust the process if you're going to be painting portraits, and that's just something I wanted to make sure that I said in this video. But yeah, anyways, here I'm just laying in the eyelashes. I don't know about y'all, but I think that's kind of the most exciting part about painting an eye. Those lashes really bring it to life. But I couldn't breathe when I was painting them in, because making a brush make straight lines is actually very difficult. And then just a black background to make it pop. And I think another thing I learned from this painting is that I was looking to make something super realistic. And I realized that if I actually go a little bit abstract with how I approach the skin and how I blend out the lines and get that skin texture without really looking at every single piece of or wrinkle on my mom's face in the reference photo, that's a lot better for making the painting feel alive. So that's what I tried to do. Here I had been in the studio so long that it was the first day we really got snow. And when I came into the studio that morning, it wasn't snowing, and I scootered there, and then when I left it was. And so my friend had to literally drag the scooter through the snow, and it was just ridiculous, but yeah. Okay, so we are now on to painting number 2, which is also of my mom's face. This part is her nose and her smiling. After the first painting, the second painting of her face went so much smoother and so much easier, because I had a much more established approach, whereas for the first one I was just struggling through it and confused. So this time I knew what I wanted to do, so I'm just laying in a smooth layer of skin with no detail in there for the skin texture, and I'm just going to lay that layer in and blend everything out nicely. I would make my friends come in and keep me company, and so there's a chicken wing break. Yeah, and then after laying in the smooth skin, I go in with all the details. And so, because this time I could really trust the process, I wasn't really doing it piece by piece of detail stuff. So I lay in the details pretty much the whole face through. And the thing about laying, when I say laying in the details, I don't mean that all these little dots and lines I was seeing directly on the photo. There are pieces where I would just kind of make up what those shapes were, because I had an idea of like what those shapes should be, their size, what they should feel like. And that's where the abstraction comes in, of me kind of doing my own things to make it go faster and to make the painting more about, you know, the art instead of the picture, because I think it's important to separate those two when you're into portraits. Otherwise, it's kind of like, why'd you paint it? You can just look at a photo. And I mean, that's obviously a very impressive form of art, and quite frankly, something I was going for, but I realized I don't know if I had the time to decide I was qualified for such a huge project. But yeah, so I'm kind of laying in the details where I see fit, putting in the highlights, and figuring out the balance of like the shadows and the highlights and which side the light is landing on her face, to make sure that when I kind of invent marks that they make sense. So they're invented, but they all live within this world that is my mother's face, and that it makes sense for them to belong there, that kind of thing. And then I go in with a huge brush and I blend all those wrinkles out and lines out, because my mom is a very young looking woman, and so it wouldn't really make sense. And so I kind of blend all those lines together and go back in and fix things and add detail back where it's needed, or add contrast back where it's needed. Yeah, and that was kind of the process for how I did these. So the eye was a learning process, and then the mouth made sense to me and went way, way, way faster. And then another black background for consistency and for contrast. For anyone interested in taking art classes at Harvard, whether you go there now or you hope to, I just wanted to talk about my experience in this art class. It was an intro class, so it was 6 hours once a week, which is kind of not typical. Usually they break up studio classes to be twice a week. But the way they used that time was really good. So we would talk about readings, and those readings would kind of be jump off points and inspiration for the work we would do in previous weeks or the weeks to come. But prompts would always be really open-ended. And even though it's an intro class, that didn't mean they were like teaching you about how to shade and like what perspective is and like those kind of things. No, it was more like about having open prompts. You could come in at any level and just grow. And the more you put in, the more you'd get out. And one thing I really appreciated was that there was a lot of diversity. So in the readings, we'd see a lot of like Black artists and their opinions and their perspectives, and like we had an artist come in and talk about her art who was also Black, and it's just cool to be exposed to that. That's something I've not really seen before. And Black artists across time have been kind of not represented at like high institutions for art, and so it was cool to just see like Black artists thriving and just the amazing work that they do. And that was just something I personally really appreciated. They would also take us on trips. So we saw the museum right next door, the Harvard Art Museum. We also went into Boston and looked at a museum there. We would go on walks into studios for artists that lived in Cambridge, and they would talk about their experience with art and their art careers, and like how to just stay inspired and keep working and keep being creative in like careers that span over years. And I think it was just cool to learn about arts on so many different levels, perspectives, different places. That was very exciting. This last painting I wanted to say is of tomatoes. Hopefully you've already guessed. And the reason I painted tomatoes is because my mom is an incredible cook. And as I said before, this painting, this series is inspired by her. She now has her own restaurant, and so tomatoes just remind me of her, because in the Nigerian culture, a lot of our recipes are made with tomatoes. And so that's why I painted them, because I remember at my art showing, no one could guess what they were, and they were very confused as to how it was related. But yeah, so here's the final product, guys. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And definitely leave a comment down below if you have any questions. And as promised, here's my mom's reaction.
Okay, let's see. Oh, the old one. This is a painting. Not gonna be me, right?